All right, so we are, sounds like everybody who's going to be here is here. So we have four of us in house and two of us remote. The two remote folks, you should have the ability as panelists to mute and unmute yourself as you please. So feel free to do that when you want to chime in. You don't need to actually raise your hand or anything. You can just kind of turn your mute off, and then we'll be able to hear you via speaker, the room. The other folks just won't be able to see you. But we'll at least be able to hear you. So I don't know if you want to start us off, Daisy, or if you want to.
I guess. So Nick has a quick slideshow presentation thing. I don't know what you want to call it. And then we're just gonna kind of discuss where this committee needs to go, wants to go, should go.
All right, so back to me. So again, in-house, we have myself, Nicholas Handy, we have Daisy Hawk, we have Chris Ratcliffe, we have Jennifer Horn, and then online we have Deanna Wilson and Heather Dean. We do have a few people that couldn't make it tonight, but that is okay. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of hinge off of that last point that we made at the last meeting. During that time, we were in budget season. We were trying to do some communication, not necessarily on the fly, but some really targeted stuff to try to get the budget information out there. And then we had kind of raised this point of like different types of communication and kind of were there certain additional things we wanted to do, just to hinge off of that budget point. We did end up sending out the voters guide in the same format, and we've received a lot of positive feedback on that. So we're going to kind of use that as our template moving forward for a school district newsletter, probably quarterly. We will have to build more money into the budget to accommodate the mailings if that's something we want to continue doing, because it's a little bit more pricey in both the printing cost and then the delivery cost. I think it was about $1,400 for one individual mailing, and that's the cost to both print and to mail. So I wanted to just run over a couple different communication methods, just to kind of show what we have at our disposal, what we're using to communicate. I'll kind of try to run through these somewhat quickly. If we have questions, we want to go further on anything, just let me know. So in terms of social media, our primary mode of communication would be Facebook. That's where we post a lot of our relevant information for people to find. It's usually where we get the most engagement, we get the most shares. It's not to say that we capture everybody, but we capture a large audience, because even if they aren't specifically attached to our page, it gets shares to other pages and other places and kind of spreads. People talk about it, so on. So we're at about 1,900 followers right now. I think 2-3 years ago, we were at about 15. So over the past couple of years, we have picked up an additional, about 400 people. Looking specifically at growth of the page, our page reach is up 104 or 100.4% year over year that's counting, looking at mid-April to mid-April. Our reach is just kind of a generic classification for anything that somebody sees, interacts with, etc. There's specific metrics that go further, whether somebody likes, comments, shares, etc. But reach is just kind of a who's getting eyes on it. So that says that we've had major growth over the past year. And then profile visits, meaning somebody actually going to our page and looking at things, we're up 110.1%.
Do you have any reason why? Any ideas?
So part of it is just being more conscious in promoting. Some of it, we've been trying to work really hard on like branding initiatives so that people know what content is, relevant to them, using certain color schemes, logos, etc. We have had a couple posts that have really exploded greatly. For example, the RMS post that we did where we discussed Mark Griffin coming home and the school celebration there, that blew anything that we've ever done social media wise completely out of the water. On a good post, we probably get between 1,000 and 3,000 people reached. I think that one had over 26,000, and there's a lot of reasons for that, just the emotions behind it. It's a good family story. We've also had a lot of really noteworthy things over the past year. I mean, having superintendent of the year, having a couple hires. We've been able to look at partnerships specifically, and anytime we have an opportunity to partner with somebody, especially someone like FPU, another post that did really well, it was just pictures of kids coming into RMS and getting greeted by the Franklin Pierce football team. But because we like linked with them on that post, they shared it to their network and it got into a whole complete different audience that we're not normally used to. So it's being mindful of those different strategies, techniques, etc., so that we can really expand and build out. And then in terms of looking at what we do on Facebook, we share photos, we share the important news. If a big email goes out from Ruben or somebody else, it goes on there, usually just like a little title card to draw attention. I try to not do anything that's purely a text block, because you want to at least get somebody drawn to it and then they'll read it. If there's like articles in local papers, we'll share them that way. So that's kind of a big area for us right now, and it's an area that we can continue to see a pattern of growth in. We also do have an Instagram page. We're seeing a smaller amount of growth in that page. Page reach is up 42.8%, so still growing, but not at the same rate. We have a lot less followers. We only have 462 people there. Not as many people are on Instagram, for one. For two, we do share a lot of duplicate information, just because it is a smaller page. If we wanted to explore in the future, we could try to do some exclusive Instagram content and just be like, hey, go follow our Instagram. You get exclusive photos and things like that there. We can see if that really expands that out. But for right now, it's kind of just a place of duplication. The biggest issue around Instagram is that Facebook's a lot more intuitive on like what you can post, and it gives you more abilities to post things. If you post like a text block in Instagram, you can't actually link anything in there. So if I post a link, it doesn't go anywhere. I have to direct them like somewhere on the website, like go here and this is where you can find it. There's also certain size requirements that Instagram adheres to, and you need to have everything be the same like dimensions or ratio. So you can't have like a couple horizontal and a couple vertical images. You have to find a way to make those the same imprint usually. We don't have a Twitter. We don't really have any other social media accounts at this time. So those are the primary two. We obviously have the website. Websites are about 2 years old at this point, maybe a little bit less. Obviously, there's a lot of content on the website, and the fact that we were able to branch out into different school-based websites, we're able to better classify information specific to those audiences. Updating content can be hard since I'm the only person doing the website right now and social media and all that. But we are working on a solution through the Alma process. We're also working on School Messenger to update a lot of that, because School Messenger controls our website and our communication pieces. So we'll probably talk more about that, maybe even some other meeting about kind of where we're going with that, because we should have significant progress within the next year. But we can, on the main website page, you have the photo slides, you can show different photos, you have that main text block, you have the quick links that you can guide people to, you have a news article section so that you can classify different things there, and then obviously just standard website items. We do have newsletters for each school. Typically they go out weekly. I know JGS has been a little bit more spotty lately, but theoretically, I think JRCSD releases on either Sunday or Monday. The elementary schools release usually Thursday, Friday. Content's a little bit more tailored to school. You'll get photos, you'll get, whatever relevant information or news you need as a parent usually. We do house those on the website in a certain section, so that if anybody at any point wants to go through and look at older ones, they're all in one spot. We are expanding into the SAU side now of trying to do this district newsletter, probably quarterly. Two of them obviously being the budget newsletter and then the voters guide. And then we had talked, I think at one point, and I don't remember if it was this committee or the other more budget-based one that was a short-term one, about the frequency and when we were going to time them, perhaps maybe one over the summer closer to the start of the school year, and one maybe like October, November, after a couple months in the district, or in the school year rather. Middle school, high school also has multiple newsletters. They have a weekly, they have a monthly, and then they have a library newsletter. We do have the mobile app. We talked a lot more about that last time, so I'm not going to spend too much time going over it. But it's mostly kind of a link sharing device in which we have the different buttons that people can click on to go to specific spots in the website. Any news stories that are put on the website are brought into that news feed on the mobile app, and you can customize that based on what schools you're affiliated with. So if you don't want to see the middle high school stuff, you don't have to. And we are working on the ability to make a more robust notification system from the app so that when we do like snow days and things like that, we can add that into the loop where somebody would get a ping on the phone that says, you know, you have a snow day, and that could be independent of the, you know, email. It would be looped in with like the email and the all call process, but it would allow for a different type of communication.
Do you have any way to know, like, how many people are either have downloaded the app or active users of the app?
Yeah,
like
we do
that?
have all those metrics, and I shared some of them at the last meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want, I can get you some of that
Okay, yeah,
information,
just-
that's more updated. And then we also do have a YouTube page, which that houses all the school board meetings, any meeting like this that I'm live streaming. We also put like student work up there when we can. You know, obviously when we're doing songs, performances, things like that, we have to make sure we're adhering to copyright usage. You know, recent example, we were able to put the JGS and HDI videos on there. And they were all fair use songs, so they're not going to get, you know, audio cut or anything like that. And then any other video projects that we create for the district that are kind of showcasing what we do go on there as well. So those are kind of the main things that we can use to communicate. Like I said, we are working through the ALMA process of trying to create a more robust back end so that we have additional communication options moving forward. And I can either go over those a little bit now, or we can have a more formal presentation at another point.
Yeah, one thing that, you know, as a parent, I've always thought, and yeah, also I've recently running for school board, right? Communicating with the community. One thing that I think is an important part that we can't neglect is like opportunities for in-person communication, right? We've gone over a lot of the kind of electronic. We do reach a lot of people that way. And I think that the in-person, there's certainly some opportunities, but I think that's always been important for me, finding like taking advantage of maybe existing events. And I won't get ahead of myself. I'll just maybe leave it at like making sure we have some sort of strategy to connect with, you know, parents and community members face to face. I think should be one of the things that we talk about going forward.
Yeah, and then
I know, like, especially as we get into graduation and end of year celebrations, that we, as many of us can go, always try to go to the Conan graduation. And then all of the other celebrations, we try to make sure that the school board is in some form represented there. I know in past years, JGS and RMS 5th grade is same night, like half an hour apart. So it's typically the Jaffrey people are at Jaffrey, Ringe are at Ringe.
Yep.
But with them being on separate nights, there may be an opportunity for everybody to go to everything. But we try not necessarily as a, is there somebody going to this? More of a go to whatever you can fit into your schedule, but
Yeah,
try to get people in
definitely.
those.
And I'm thinking more along the lines of like using it as part of a strategy to communicate, get parents involved, right? So let's say at an open house, something like that, you have a table there, and like we're probably trying to get parents to participate in committees, things like that. And I've certainly found it's a lot easier, like for maybe a parent might get an email, say, I want to be involved in that. You know, it's easy to not respond to the email.
But
I'd
an
like to
open
think that
house, if you had
an
2 or
open
3
house,
tables that set up
I was-
volunteer,
If I was
volunteer
talking to
here,
you as a
volunteer
parent,
here.
being like, hey, you know, people, would you like to get involved? Here, you know, here's a piece of paper. Can I sign you up for this committee? Just, you know, that's just one example of, but I think, you know, all this is good, but I think that's part of it and can allow kind of that face-to-face
I think that's a great
communication,
idea.
which is gonna, you know, you may hit less people, but you may be getting the people that are more inclined to get involved, right? The people that are showing up to events and that maybe want to help, but just need that maybe a bit of a push.
Well,
And
that
in
was
the
a-
past, we've done fingerprinting at the same, so you want to sign up to volunteer, and here we can do fingerprinting right here
Yeah,
at the plate.
Fewer opportunities. I
Um,
just hear that a lot, like, I really wish I was more involved.
But I don't know how to
But-
start and to take the time to do it, but if I was already at the school, and the elementary school open houses,
They get a lot of people.
wow.
Yeah, right?
So having a couple tables set up for volunteer opportunities, and, you know, even breaking them into different types of things so people could go to the
Or
tables.
whatever else we want to communicate,
Mhm.
right? That's just one example.
I will say, as a parent, I've noticed the school board at a lot more events, and I really do appreciate that.
So a couple of good points got brought up in that round. Speaking to like live events and having people show up. There've been a lot more attempts now that we're more out of COVID, you know, to have a lot of events. There's been a lot in here. Usually there have been cases where we'll live stream as well, just to have that additional layer and that ability for people that can't attend to still kind of attend, or at least to record it, so we have it as a resource. But I do think that we are starting to see more of those events come back, and I think there's value in exploring how we can better leverage
Yeah, right.
different events to have that. When it comes to committee involvement and things like that, I think that's also a great idea. I'm assuming that you're talking in part like school board committees.
Yeah,
but
whatever we
also other
need, right?
things.
Maybe it's, you know,
Yeah,
volunteer in the classroom or, you know, this and that. Just one other avenue to communicate with people.
so I think in the
Part of-
volunteer approach, I'm not as involved in that, but when it comes to volunteering, I think that if we can find a way to make that process really easy for people to join, and we can publicize it in a way, and almost like each, you know, like right now we're doing this job fair opportunity where we're trying to get people to work for us, but having something almost similar where, you know, we're telling people what you can do when you volunteer, like saying, oh, you can just volunteer is very
Yeah, right.
generic. So
Yeah, there's stuff like, I mean, I know teachers need help in the classrooms. There's teachers going into, you know, RMS or parents going into RMS and, you know, laminating things or whatever needs to be done in the classroom. Help out teachers, you know, just as one example, but a lot of ways to get that across. And I think that, you know, that for example, like the open houses at the beginning of the year is a great opportunity in leveraging other stuff, you know. And then along with that, you know, possibly even creating like own events of like, hey, if you want to, I don't know what that would be, but certainly haven't thought it that through, just thinking along the lines of these different kind of pillars of communication, that in-person one is something we want to have a cohesive plan for.
well, and I know that sometimes, you know, looking at like after school events and things like that, like clubs, sometimes our biggest barrier is having people that have the ability to advise those clubs.
Yeah.
So being able to even work with things like that, getting more community partnerships. I mean, I'll move to this next slide because it kind of starts speaking a little bit more. So this is a part of our multi-year plan, and it's a huge kind of component of what we're trying to do planning wise. As you can see, there's three kind of major circles, that being communication, collaboration, and community. And that ability to engage all three of those circles in a way, and that we're able to achieve whatever goal it is that we're striving to do. So I think that the more that we can use communication to get that collaboration and the community involvement, the more we can really start to have more progress in different areas that isn't just, hey, we're communicating news or whatever, we're communicating, you know,
Right.
everything.
Yep.
And I think also just the understanding of that, while we've done a lot of work to make things more efficient and more digital friendly, there are still people that don't have access, whether it access to internet, the ability to use it. There was a lot of power and understanding and the ability of sending out those newsletters around budget season. Like anecdotally, I heard there were people that walked up to the polls with them in their hands. Having, you know, just that resource that you have that's tangible instead of, oh, let me search through my emails on my phone, let me go to this place on the website. So I think even just being more mindful of having some of those physical deliverable
Yep.
items.
I also think I have to, as a parent, make myself open that email every week, because there may be something in there and it's just, I have anywhere between 100 and 200 emails a day. But as a parent, I need to parent and open that email. those in-person things, if somebody talked to me about, did you see this in the, like when we're at the school board meetings and I know what's going on at the high school, it's because I've been making myself open those emails. But if people talked, I think it's all of it. We are really good about weekly emails. And then you're like, I just get so many.
Hmm.
So too much communication also saturates and we're missing. And there's not a perfect win. I do like the idea of we haven't thought about how we can improve our in-person connections as well.
Yeah, and even I think part of that can be, I've mentioned, you know, we talked about volunteer opportunities, but part of that could be like, hey, here's some great stuff that's going on this year. You know,
Mhm. And
like, and there could be big things that we've talked about the school board meeting that, you know, nobody really knows about yet, or things that we're thinking about in the future. And I'm thinking about, you know, mostly positive things.
The concerts and theater things that I don't have a middle high schooler. I don't generally have much to do in this building, but how do we do more community-wide and not just JGS or just RMS?
And I think that part of that falls on our administration. There's no reason that 2 or 3 of those kids that are about to be in a play weren't here at the last school board meeting in costume saying, come see our play. At Pops, why there's no reason that we don't have a couple kids come in and talk about Boston or about the next Pops concert. Getting our youth involved, and I don't know how many people are listening to the school board meetings, but if my kid was going to the school board meeting to present, then I would be listening.
Yeah. All right, I get it.
I'm already listening.
When we get, right now, we've taken a real downturn in virtual attendance. We probably have anywhere between like 5 and 10 people there on a given night. It's usually the same people. But looking at just a quick scan of the YouTube page, 62 views, 52 views, 49, 58, 52, 30, 42, 86. So
people are going back and looking at it.
yeah, and that's kind of the thought behind some of the, anytime that we can do a multi-tiered approach so that you can capture the different audiences in their own time. Like I don't remember if it was you or not, Jen, but you had said sometimes you'll like make dinner or you're doing dishes or whatever and you're just listening to the live board meeting.
Mhm.
So we've done a lot of work in expanding out how we can do it, but also telling people where they can look so they know where to find it. But I think we do really need to focus on that, the in-person, the person-to-person, the human connection. So those are all really valid points. When it comes to, like I said, when it comes to bringing up this conversation, last time we had talked, again, we were in this kind of tight window of we got to get this information out about the budget. We don't want our budget to fail. We obviously aren't saying like vote for the budget, but we wanted to at least inform people about what they were voting for so that they could make a better, more informed decision. At that point we were talking about, okay, like we kind of have this window right now where we're trying to communicate, but what if we were planning better or more efficiently so that we had more time to really plan out what we wanted to say and we're not kind of mad dashing into doing something. Our communication plan in both iterations, the first one and what we have now, are very focused on like very big, large items that are really helpful, but I feel like sometimes we also kind of lose some of those pieces, like the things that Chris was talking about, some of the smaller pieces about like, you know, are we communicating the right things? Are we putting them in the right places? So I guess at this point, it's more of an open-ended conversation. I think that maybe next school board meeting, it could be, not school board, sorry, communication meeting. There could be some value in maybe looking over the communication plan, just because that was written largely by me with a former iteration of the committee that was kind of phasing out. I think there could be value in looking at what we've done over the past year, looking at the goals. What do we want to change? What do we want to add? So on. So at this point, I'm kind of feeling open-ended. I threw a couple questions up there. They don't have to be answered. They were just kind of conversation starters. Just so that we could have a conversation to make sure that we're kind of thinking more mindfully about communication, because again, this iteration of the committee was designed to try to be more proactive. When we first started this committee, it was very reactive. We were having a lot of problems. We wanted to fix problems. We got a lot of data information to say that we're doing better, but how do we continue to keep moving forward, pushing the envelope, making things better and better and better as we move forward. So.
How many community partnerships do we have that we could say, and I'm just gonna use the play as an example, that we could take that flyer and email it to Millipore and, or mail it to them and ask them to put it in their cafeteria or in their staff room? So that things, positive things that people, that the community could easily participate in are being communicated out there.
I would say that we probably have a lot. Unfortunately, again, that's one of those processes that I'm kind of looped into, but not completely. The approval process is in the superintendent's department, but it's not with me. So I hear a lot, I see a lot about the different posters. I don't know if it's necessarily a firm two-way relationship.
I think a lot of comes into us,
Yeah, we get a lot
but
of
how
stuff
much are
in.
we sending out?
I don't think we are, is a potential issue, is we're not making use of that kind of two-way conversation of, hey, we share all your flyers with all our students. Here's something that's relevant, potentially relevant to you. Please put it up wherever you can or share it with your employees. I have been talking with Ruben really informally about trying to create more partnerships and being more focused on like solidifying of partnerships. And that could be a component of that, just that idea of that understanding of, hey, we're approving flyers, because it also gets a little tricky on like social media, and like people say all the time, hey, can you share this? Can you share that? And the worry is like, are we going to reach the point where we're just kind of a community page and not like a school district page? But I feel like if we could create a policy, some sort of guide or something to say, here are the situations in which we would share your information. Here's how we would share it. But you also have that understanding that you would do the same for us.
Yeah, I could say that, like, if we were to want that Hello Dolly poster in the Millipore like weekly flow down, you could probably make that happen. It's not too difficult. It's not like a controversial thing.
That's what I'm wondering. There's a
But
few
yeah,
places that we could put,
those are,
these things are going on that people in the community may want to go
Yeah,
to,
right.
or
no, I think that's good. That's
they do
as far as partnerships and stuff, we should identify those kind of key partners, right?
there's an art and speech thing that the kids do at some point in the year that we could, it's a partnership with the Civic Center,
Mhm.
but that information could go beyond us in the Civic Center, and so that more people.
Well, and part of it for me too is getting us to be in this place where I'm not the pure funnel of communicating out. In some ways, it's a lot of it comes to me, and then I'm having to like put it here, there, and everywhere and do that. We're working on a process. Again, I've alluded to it a lot. We can talk about it more next meeting. That would put more communication in the hands of other people. We'd be able to give people, the counseling department control of their website page, and I would just be monitoring it. We're gonna have different ways that like administrators can communicate. It's gonna be a lot more specified in terms of you can go a lot more detailed. We're messing around with this idea of like, is there a way that we can do like a community portal so that we can somehow get people that are not in the school district community to sign up for things in terms of getting information delivered directly to them instead of them having to find it.
I think you bring up an important point there. I think from an outside observer, you've done a good job of kind of setting up the systems and like expanding it. And at some point you become the bottleneck. But now that the infrastructure's, mostly in place, you should be able to kind of start delegating a bit. And I think there's value. I've always seen there's value in the communication, like coming from different voices, right? It's not that there's anything wrong with it coming from Nick, right? But it's like, oh, this is coming from somebody new. This is, and it's maybe a different tone, a different voice. And
Well,
it gets through to certain people.
And it's simple things like you may word one event this way, but somebody else will share the exact same event, but word it totally different. And the idea is the same, you're getting the information out there, but because it's worded different, you're gonna reach different people for different reasons.
Well, and voice is important. I do a lot of writing for people, writing emails, things like that, and then they'll send them out and it's from them, but it's mostly at least draft written from me. And the more you work with somebody, the more you can pick up on like those individual little things that they do or don't do. So like sometimes when I'm working with people that are more new or not as common, I do find that it's like, okay, I'm writing this in a way that makes sense to me, but is this in a way that you would say it?
Yep.
So there is value in having those different voices, the different levels, having the board chair write that letter for the budget news. It wasn't all me.
Yeah, that
It
was a
wasn't
good
all the
example.
committee. Yeah.
You could hear John in that.
Yeah.
Like when reading that and knowing John a bit, you could kind of hear his voice
It
coming
was
through.
his passion
Yep.
coming through in it. And it wasn't, not to say that you're not passionate, but it
No.
wasn't Nick's communication out. It was John's passion and like his heart went into it of this is what we do and this is what we need to do to be able to do what we do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to the different voices, to the different ways that we're communicating, people that are doing it. Like with being able to have people do their own website pages, there could be more interactivity, things updated more frequently. A lot of the times I'm reached out to and like, oh, hey, like we need to update this thing. And it's like, okay, well, okay, give me the information and I'll do it. But if you have the people that are running those things and they're more in the weeds and knowledgeable, they can put up things more rapidly, more understandably. And then I'm not having to like, okay, well, fill me in on what I have to do. So I think that we're in a place where we've kind of set up norms. We're setting up some of that foundational level. Now it's time to get that more community, internal and external build.
I think having some more student involvement, obviously with adults overseeing, might also get more parents coming to our pages. Like say we did like the yearbook had their own Instagram page to put different photos or something on, would bring more people to our Instagram because they want to see their kid's picture on it.
Well, and something we're trying to do is social media, and it happens occasionally, not as much as I'd like, but we try to get students to submit information. Like the robotics club, they submit a lot of stuff. I'd love to get a lot more clubs sharing what they're doing, again, in their own voice, in their own way, so that it's not, it's coming from the perspective of a student that's at school. More involvement at, board meetings, other events. There's definitely lines in the current communication plan that speak to more student involvement. At the last board meeting, we had talked about me maybe needing somebody to train or help with some of the live streaming duties. And, that's an opportunity that we can involve more students. There's been kind of this ongoing discussion of creating more of like a broadcast club that's never really gotten off the ground because we need more student involvement that are kids that are actually, committed to following something through, because there is a lot of education and training and understanding of the equipment that you're working with. I mean, we've been able to do it in really small doses, but to have that more consistent help would be awesome. Because, again, like if somebody's helping out with a live stream, maybe you don't care about basketball, but you want to see your kid, operating cameras and things like that. But I think there's a couple different ways. I know we've talked about like ELO opportunities and how we could potentially even give students credit for working through some of this stuff. I could help with some of the education and whatnot, but they could have like the formal ELO process to actually get credit for that.
It would be interesting in the future if maybe we could add like a broadcasting class or like morning announcement class, and that once you sign up for it, you're stuck there for that semester or whatever. They're responsible for putting out the content.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. We did have a student a year or two ago that actually had that idea, not a class, but a club or like an ELO, I don't remember specifically. And we started the process of learning the equipment, being introduced to things, and then it just kind of fell apart, unfortunately. But I'd really love to support something like that, because I think, you know, we've officially moved all the equipment into the library so that we can set up a process where it's more accessible, trying to see how we can have like a checkout system so that it's not purely running through me. Yeah, if we had a class, I could either help out or, you know, I probably wouldn't be able to teach it, but I don't know if I'd want to teach it. But
you could be a semi-regular presenter in the class to help give the knowledge out.
yeah,
I also think something like that would check off a lot of different boxes for like just for grading purposes. You could pull so much into doing that, different things with the kids. Journalism, having them interview other kids, or even didn't we have a journalism class a while ago? I think we did.
Yes.
Combining the two somehow.
Well, and they have to take a digital tech class. It's as a graduation requirement. So could this, you know, and we're not there yet, and who could teach that and what that might look like, but could it fulfill a digital tech requirement?
well, and a lot of at least, I guess I've been out of school for over 5 or 6 years now. Maybe.
What are you talking about, Nick? You're in school every day.
Well, I've been out of college at least for almost a decade, I guess, at this point, which is terrifying. But when I was in journalism, I was specifically in a journalism program, and they taught specifically at that time multimedia journalism. It wasn't purely about writing, it was about being able to write, being able to take a photograph, being able to do a short video project. And the idea was that if you were dropped in a situation with a phone, you'd be able to produce all these pieces, you know, just by being there. So there's a lot of skills that extend beyond just journalism that you can learn in that type of structure.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking along, I would guarantee that like a student produced whatever is going to get a lot of views on the page, right? And if it can be informative and interesting, you know, even better.
And I think that speaks to, going back to the voice conversation, this idea of not having everything come from the administration or the SAU.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because people have their perceptions and attitudes about the administration and SAU. So, you know, having it under a different banner or different person's face behind it is they're gonna receive that completely differently.
That, and I think it's just another avenue to showcase the different things that we're doing in another light in the district. People are a lot more receptive to the kids showing what they love about the school or what they did this week in school than the administration saying, here's what we did, here's our accomplishments.
Yeah.
Now, you know.
I totally agree. And that kind of touches on something that I did want to bring up today. And if you were to ask me kind of thinking about this committee, right? This is my first time being on this committee, and I look at how we communicate. And like I said, I think to me, like the basics and the infrastructure, and you can't say that as a parent, like you're not being communicated with, right? I don't see how you could be. It's like you can go to the Facebook page, you can go to the website, you get emails, you get newsletters. Absolutely. If and I'm not saying it's too much, but if anything, it's like
it's there.
It's there, right? You can't say that it's not there. So I kind of move from that. That's good, right? That's like a bit of a check. Not that it can't be improved, right? And optimized like we're talking about, but that's a bit of a check. So I look at more like part of this job of this committee should be like almost like more strategic communications, like you were doing with the voting, right? That was like more of a strategic communication. And if you were to ask me, and this is just kind of my view, but I'm interested to hear what the other people in the committee have to say about it. If you're to say, Chris, what's like, you could do one kind of, what's the one problem with communication right now in the district? And I'll say it's the fact that the view of the community, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, Daisy, and the other people in the community, is that RMS is great and JGS is great. And the middle school and high school, I don't want my kids there. And whatever the issues are. I heard this a lot during my campaign. I still hear it. So I think there's I look at that as a problem, but also an opportunity, right? And in thinking about that, if you talk to parents, and I have someone in the middle school and I have children in the elementary school. So I talk to a lot of these parents, and the information that they're receiving is not from the school necessarily, right? So I think there's an opportunity there. In particular, I'm bringing this up now because I think we're in a kind of a critical time as fifth graders are moving up to sixth graders, and these conversations are going on, is how do we reach, particularly these parents. I'm thinking about fifth grade parents and younger elementary school parents who are terrified for whatever reason of sending their kids to the middle and high school. How do we reach them to address those concerns? Because I think a lot of those concerns are from, they're not getting the information from the middle and high school. They're getting it from other parents, who, I'm sure, I don't discredit their opinions, but I still think there's a kind of a information gap there. And the other piece of that is not just communicating, but also, to me, this is a piece of it is there's a lot of parents, RMS, JGS. I think you see that less and less as you get to the middle school and the high school. I can tell you, as a parent, I've been in that elementary school quite a bit. As far as the middle school, it's less, right? I'm here because, I'm on the school board and I'm helping coach and stuff like that. But I don't think there's many opportunities to kind of get behind the walls and see what it's like. So I've talked a lot there. I have a tendency to go on. So I'm going to shut myself off right now and just leave it for what other people think. But that's what I see is kind of like, if you were to ask me, can we do one thing? It's like, how do we address that issue? Because I think we can. And now I'll be quiet.
I definitely think going forward on the communication side, we need to add image, and not mascot image, but school image, what the public sees of each of the schools. Because I do agree, a lot of people have a negative image of the middle and high school when there's a lot of stuff that we offer that they don't know about. And they're hearing things from when either they were in middle school or high school or years past. And I think the loudest voices are not the majority, and they just make it snowball through the community.
Well, and I think that this is not a new issue for us.
Yeah, it's certainly not.
This is something that really, I guess, came to a head the first time when the first communication committee started. But at that point, it was like, we feel like we're not getting anything. So now we're giving people everything, and there's still a little bit of unrest. There's still maybe a perception of issue with culture. As you said, it's just because we're putting the information out there doesn't mean people are reading it from us. They may be hearing second, third, fourth hand on social media and be informing their opinion based on that. So it's how do we put that information out there? How do we share more information? Part of my issue is I can only know about something if I'm told about it. So if we can get more people involved, perhaps there's more opportunities to continually have these messages out there.
Yeah, like I don't know as far as the whole, step up and things like that, I think that there should be a component, and I'm sure that there is already, right? I'm not saying that there isn't, but some component of that about, proactive communication to parents, making people feel comfortable, whether it's, getting them in here or showing them, all these different clubs and opportunities, introducing them to teachers. And I particularly like the idea that, I don't know the voices on the phone, but somebody said of it like coming from the kids. I think that would be, it's obviously something we can't force. But
But if-
something like that, I think could go a long way versus from the administration,
If
right?
the high schoolers are there with the middle schoolers on step up day going, this is what is really good about this, and we really liked when we did this, and this happens, and they're getting the student perspective of what is good. You'll automatically in that conversation, it will transpire to some of the things that are bad, but
Yeah. But
You're
just getting the
gonna get
visibility
that-
inside these walls, I think is
Yeah.
important, because I think certain people have this picture of like, I don't know what it is, but they picture inside these walls as like all this stuff is going on that, they'd be horrified by. And I think we need to show them the reality of what is going on in here and some examples. I think that.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely agree with that. I think a lot of parents sometimes forget middle school and high school kids are not happy all the time. Mine hate me sometimes too. So pulling out the parts that they love about school and having them talk about it is definitely great. I think things like the link crew that have the older kids showing the younger kids, this is the stuff that's great about this school, is really important. And if we can let the community know somehow that this is going on, and look, these are the same things your kids are being told, would definitely go a long way.
Yeah, I remember that when I think we watched the video at one of the school board meetings of, when Emma Tenters was interviewed, about she was being interviewed about basketball. But she did speak for a bit about how much she likes high school, and because we have so many opportunities, and she did speak for, about 30 seconds of that about what she loved about high school. And I think, that's certainly going to be a lot more effective than a newsletter or me or, someone else saying it. So just an idea, but I think that's a real, I just hear it over and over and over again. And honestly, it's frustrating to me. But again, I think we should take that and turn it into like, all right, what's the plan here? I think it needs to be something.
So I didn't grow up around here. Grew up in northern Vermont, and my high school on freshman orientation day, it was only freshmen on campus. But we all came to the auditorium and sat down, and then a video was shared, and it was just somebody had walked around the whole school at the end of the previous school year and asked, what do you love about our school? What are your favorite things that you've done in your 1 to 4 years here? What's great? What do you love? And just, it was like 20 minutes, but it was a snapshot from all walks of life in our school. And it was freshmen to seniors. It wasn't just the senior class. It was everybody. What do you like about our school? What do you like about what's offered? What events happened that you really liked? And so you're coming into the school on orientation and then hearing, oh, they do that. Oh.
Yeah.
And you're learning all these things that aren't, these are the classes that are offered.
Yep. No, I think that sounds great. And I also think that the bigger problem is with the parents than the kids.
Yep.
So anything that could get to the parents, which again, there's
And
an influence there, right? The
Once,
parents are feeling a certain way about things.
once orientation happened and we saw the video, then it got emailed out to our district of, this is the snapshot video that was shared with freshman orientation. And so anybody who's receiving the emails got the video. And so, like, for me, my mom got it and then she could watch it and go, oh, you did, or you heard about whatever. And then it was this open conversation of what I can do in high school.
Heather had submitted a comment in the chat, so I just wanted to read it out. And again, this is from Heather Dean. Heather says, it would be nice if next year there could be representation from staff and parents within buildings to join the committee to then talk about things that are happening in and out of schools, more of a behind the scenes conversation.
Mhm.
And then 2 points that I had just from the conversation thus far. Number one being a big thing that I brought up a bunch of times in my tenure here in different ways and places is this concept of just like humanization of things. And I feel like it's very easy to, in many cases, sit behind a keyboard, sit behind your phone, type out a bunch of really negative, hurtful stuff and just send it off into the ether, you know, on the whatever page or whatever you're in. You're not hurting anybody because you don't see anybody hurt. You're not having any of that interaction. So that's why like I've tried with like social media and things like that to put more faces and photos, you know, having that like I do a series now where we like welcome new staff. I send out a questionnaire and I send that out. And like one of the questions that I've always asked is just like a fun fact about people, to just have that like silly little thing that like maybe you can identify more with somebody because of that. Like the more you can find in common with people, the more you can kind of come together. So like for me, a lot of it is how do we continue to create those connections? And it speaks back to in-person events. It speaks back to, you know, these different modes. And then the second point I had is this idea of we are a district in a community that's very proud of like tradition and heritage and like a lot of these like things that have continued on for years. And we're at a point in our district's growth where we're doing a lot of different things and new things and things that people may not be used to. And I think that in some cases there's that fear of change and there's that fear of things being different. And I think that the more we can just be conscious about that while communicating, creating different ways in which people can reach out, different ways in which people can access information, we can be more successful in maybe getting rid of at least some of that fear.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, you hit an important point. It is that a lot of it is fear driven. So, you know, information can help kind of alleviate some of that. And ultimately, I think everyone does have the kids' best interests at heart. They may be coming at it from completely different angles, you know,
Differences of
completely
opinion of
different
what that is.
perspectives. And I think that, you know, that needs to be a focus. It's like we're going to recognize that people are going to have different opinions, but really focusing on the fact that, you know, we are, you know, as a district trying to do the best things for all the kids, and we're certainly not going to agree on everything, but, you know, here's what we're trying to do, and, you know, just having that open approach.
Well, some of it, I think the
also-
challenges. You can go, Deanna.
I also think adding some sort of like a step up day that's not just the kids. I like an evening where it's the parents and the students coming in so that it's a presentation to both of them where some of the parents' questions and concerns can just be eased right there of, no, we don't interact the middle school and the high school a ton. Yes, they'll see them a little bit, but it's not throughout they're not interacting with 12th graders all day long. I think would go a long way versus just telling the kids about it.
Yeah, no.
Are we talking about that? We do that with sixth grade for sure.
You have parents in?
Mm-hmm. They have, the last few years, they've done a full barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
For all kids and parents, and the whole community comes together, and then they've had that and in addition, I think they set up 2 different nights where parents could come in and ask questions before right before school starts, so that those are.
I think honestly, and that's all great. I think part of the problem is that you've already lost a lot of the kids coming from elementary school to middle school before that happens. They make the decision, now essentially that we don't like what's going on at the middle school and the high school, so we're going to send our kids to this place, homeschool. I think that that's all good, but possibly something else, now during this time when people are thinking about this, making these decisions,
Okay.
can help kind of fill that gap would definitely be helpful. Because I think that's when we lose a lot of people in this kind of, basically this month, right? Is they're
Mhm.
deciding what their next steps are.
Well, to take what you're saying and to take a further step back, looking at all these different times of years representing different things, and looking at what types of communication have to happen in those timelines. For example, realizing this budget season that we created a really tight window to create a newsletter and get everything out, and we were like trying really hard to get it in a certain timeline, so it just created really tight windows. A lot of work went on in like a very small period of time. So it's like, how do we better phase things in and out so that we are thinking about the messaging and all these other things, and then putting them out in different time periods, like you said. Yes, we have these events at just before the beginning of the school year to help
Yeah,
people,
I
but
think
if we're
that's like a
losing them-
March, April thing.
Yeah.
That we should be doing,
So
March,
Maybe
April,
we
May.
develop a calendar and track the things that we are doing and the things that we should do, and we have just a basic communication calendar. These are the types of things we do in August. These are the types of things that should be done in September, October, November, March, April. We should, do we do more for families to be ready to transition? Because frankly, the kids are not as worried about moving to
I know,
sixth grade
it's
as the parents
Yeah,
are worried
exactly.
about moving to sixth
And
grade.
that's kind of what we're talking about there, is it's
Yep.
reaching the parents is critical.
Are there resources that we can create that can maybe be very easy, quick things to share every year? For the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, is there a place that we can start? Is it a small video where it's not me talking, but kids that have already gone through the experience talking about it? Getting maybe the 6th graders from that year. I've been through it for a year. Here's how it went. Is it creating a short little 1-page, 2-page FAQ guide that it has like the starting questions of just like, here are the ones we get every year. Here it is. Here's the people you reach out to if you want to set up a meeting to talk about it more. And then do we have some of these, events that are timed in different places to say, okay, like, we understand that you're winding down your career in 5th grade. We know you have questions. We know you're concerned. Rather than waiting through the whole summer and being nervous, we're going to have an event, like you said, in April, May and June.
Yeah. I think it's really important, and because we can say that, right? There are people that have the concerns, and I'll say firsthand, I've talked to a lot of people, and you'll ask them, okay, I'd like to talk about it further. That's something I've said to people, like, I understand your concern, certainly, like, let's talk about it more. Then it kind of falls off, you don't hear much, and I don't know what the reason for that is. So I think that just tells me that we need to kind of work harder to, if we're not going to get the real specifics, but I think we can kind of know what some of it is. Let's just, address these things that we think are the concerns head on. Because I don't think there's anything to hide, right? So we want to address these concerns and let people make an informed decision.
Well, I think there's the communication that we do on a conscious level. I think there's also the thinking about the subconscious components or the inferred components of communication. For example, as you said, there are a lot of people that speak very favorably of RMS, but we have posts that are sent to me that I put up about, we're welcoming home veterans and doing this big school event. You're showing that there's a community there, and it's not to say that it's not in the other schools or being done. It's just when you have certain examples that you can have a deliverable of to let people know, hey, this is happening here. It's like, oh, wow, like that affirms my belief of this is community, this is whatever. We talked about branding and the impacts of branding and how that brings together cohesion, gives people an identity, but there are other ways that you can do it that aren't tied to color schemes, to logos. It's looking at the different schools, what are their mission statements and their mottos, what are the words that they associate themselves with, and how do you really use photos, videos, whatever, to promote those ideals? And how do you also look at some of these really big ticket concept items and find a way to like illustrate them or make them relatable? You know, I think about 1 to 4 grading, and we had all these forums, we had all these discussions, we put videos up on YouTube, we sent out letters home. It's been a discussion over multiple years. It's been done in so many different ways, and there's still people that are nervous, scared, don't know what's going on, because we don't really have that, like, or we haven't shown that firm, easy way to say, you know, here's what it looks like, here's how it translates in a way that can be very easily digested and understood. You're having a big conversation about concepts instead of saying, here's the deliverable, here's the thing, here's the
Right,
photo.
walk me through what my kid's report card looks like and what it's
Yeah.
gonna mean. I don't know. Well,
So-
I
us to do-
honestly, I think a lot of that came to change. People didn't like the change, and it was a very big concept that could have easily been digested as we're going to the 4.0 grade scale that you all know from college, and just leave it at that.
But I don't know how to make it fit in, make it work. But I know my daughter's in 3rd grade. Yes, she has her own cell phone, whole different thing. Anyways, she knows where to go to find the video from the NHDI whole school performance at JGS. And any opportunity she has to sit next to somebody, she is pulling that up on the phone and going, watch what we did. And she is so proud of herself that she can find this singular video. And I've closed everything on her phone and made her search from the beginning to get to it. She knows exactly where to go. And if somebody's gonna give her the 10 minutes to watch it, she's gonna sit there and show them the video, because she has this thing that she can actually present to people. And give it a couple weeks at camp and our entire campground will have seen that video, I am sure. Because she's just so proud that they did it, and she on her phone is, I'm that little blob right there.
And just as far as what we communicate to, I think we need to be careful to be sure not to like paint a completely rosy picture of it, right? You can communicate, and the kids can certainly communicate some negative things, but you know, maybe in a little bit more humorous way. You know, we should be kind of strategic about it. You know, as not to maybe be kind of cherry picking stuff, right? You want to give an accurate representation.
Yeah,
And I know there's
agree.
things that the kids are going to say that are great, and the kids are going to say that aren't great, and younger kids will be able to relate to that.
Well, I have a 17-year-old. It's like, at what point do I get to go to school board meetings and tell people, when do I get to go tell the community they need to pay for us to go? Our track field, our athletics, our fields are in horrible shape. Our facilities, when we go to other schools, at what point do I as a student get to say, why won't you pay for things for us? Those are the real, that the kids who are here are saying, I have good teachers, but my furniture's broken. You're right. Okay, we can't just always communicate that everything's perfect here, because then we get back to then why are we paying for things?
Yeah. No, agreed.
I definitely think having kids show the best and the worst. Like, what's your favorite part of the school, and what do you not like about the school? What would you like to see improved upon? Instead of just like bashing it, I guess. What could be improved?
Also, I think extraordinarily valuable. Does that come through this committee? I guess that's, which we talked about a lot of different things. That is a lot of different vehicles. The 5th to 6th grade transition, I'm feeling like that first is going to require a survey to the parents of what are your concerns, because I can think I know what your concerns are, but that may not even be what their concerns are. That's a different vehicle than this committee. getting communication out there from students about what's great, what's your pride and what's your pride, parts of going to Jeff Orange Cooperative School District. Is that something that we take on, and we solicit through families and parents, and if your student's interested in doing a video for part of our, is that part of our committee? Is that a different vehicle? I don't know. I think that you could have some really valuable, that we'd like to put something together and ask students if they're interested, and then ask families, they'd have to give permission for students to do that, even up to 17.
Well, that's sometimes the tough thing about communication in general is it does touch so many different areas, and in some cases, so many people have to be engaged for it to work. And there's the coordination just to make sure that those pieces are even like able to try to link together, like not even actually work and function. But when it comes to looking at what the committee does, we have a communication coordinator, being me. We have a communication committee, but like, how much are those entities responsible for every facet or lack thereof? I try to meet regularly, at least with the principals of each school, to kind of be able to talk about issues and things like that, and ways to improve. But still, that even those conversations are kind of in a vacuum, because it's just administration to administration. And how do you engage the different audiences? How do you continue to have this dialogue? We have survey results from the 2 communication committee plans. We did a survey, we created plan number 1, we did another survey, we did plan number 2. We can compare survey results number 1 to survey results number 2 and say, hey, we're doing a great job, like everything went up. But there's still those pieces that are missing that we need to engage. In general, the community piece, students is continually a discussion point. How do we
So
get
maybe
parents?
that's the next phase of this committee, is to choose some projects. Yep. So I think our general communication, we've got the infrastructure, we've been generally communicating. Maybe we choose a project and we decide as a committee, this is a project we want to do moving forward. Maybe it's 5th to 6th transition. Maybe it's student voice. Maybe we choose a project and we do something.
Well, and
next.
I'd really love to get the plan to a point where I don't feel like it's a to-do list for me.
Yep.
Because I feel like the 2 plans that we have just been to-do lists for me. And I feel like the more we can expand out and involve different groups and parties, the more power we have in being able to take these next steps. Because we have a lot of next steps that we're talking about, and they all have tremendous value. And that doesn't include all the things that I still have on the communication plan to do. But we're a committee of 8 people, and we usually this is our 3rd meeting. I don't think we've had over 5 people, maybe 6. We meet quarterly, more or less, at this point. That was what we decided on. Everybody has their things that they have to do. I'm sure, Jen and her staff don't exactly have a whole bunch of time to just set aside to do certain things. And I'm sure if you asked anybody, they'd say that as well. So it's just, I think that there could be value in that project creation, or that like using this committee, not just as a way that I can report out information, because that could potentially even just be done at the school board. But how do we use this committee in a way to be more constructive and proactive?
So our next meeting, let's look really carefully at the current plan, what needs to be adjusted and done, and then maybe start brainstorming what we do as a committee next.
Yep. And I think, sorry, Nika, to do, if you can get the copy of the current communication plan and send it to the group beforehand, then everybody can kind of put eyes on it and get an idea of what.
If we go, well, here's an example of alerts on the website. So if we have anything that's important, snow days, job fairs, etc., it blacks out everything else. You have to physically click out of it. So it creates a required viewing. But if you go to
Every
important
time you go
links,
in for everything.
Yep.
You go to, I think it's on the communication page. If not, it'll be up there. So this is just very generic. I cannot really see from here.
I don't see a link.
Okay, well, I know for sure it's here, important documents, which is where we house important documents. So we have the current plan right here.
Okay,
I'd be happy to send out the prior plan. Just to give everybody a background as to where we started, where we are now. Yeah, and I can also send out the links just so that people have an email and they can star it or whatever, and it's in a handy place or whatever way they want to save it.
but yeah, I think if we go through the plans and figure out like, okay, where can we move forward and make the biggest or
What's the
better,
what's the
best-
next best step?
yeah,
Well, I think the value, I think you were talking about like more work for me. I think the thing that I'm gonna have to do, just to let everybody know, is look, I'm probably gonna have to create a document to send you guys that goes through the plan and says what things are complete or not complete, because there are a lot of things in there that you're gonna look at that and be like, oh, I don't think that's complete, but there's like 60% completion, internally. For example, I can think of the item around the policy manual. That item's not complete, but I can run through everything that's been done.
when I had looked through the original one and just kind of made my own notes of I don't know if they're complete. And one of them was the staff directory. I know it's not complete, but with Alma getting produced, it's in the works to be completed.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, that one's gonna take an extra step potentially. We're currently working with School Messenger to figure out what we need to do to feed that live directory.
Yep.
It sounds like what we might have to do is actually purchase a module or additional program in Frontline, which is our HR document.
Yep.
Or our HR
Program.
platform. Which will help us better collect the staff side of the data, because one thing about Alma is that not every single staff member is in Alma. So it's not considered a complete staffing resource. And then the issue that we have with our other actual complete resource being iVision's, the business office software, is everything is coded very business office friendly. So we do still need that pocket of being a staff system of record that is friendly to be used.
Yep.
And then once we have that, we can feed the live directory. That's going to allow people to work on the website. So unfortunately, all the people that would, or most of the people that would work on that project are currently tied up in the Alma project. But that Alma
We're
project
close.
isn't, yeah,
Yep.
but it's at least illuminated what we need to do on the other side.
And
So
being that I know all those steps are very quickly at this point, trying to get going. Yes, it's not a completed thing, but I know it's in the works and it's going as fast as all hands in the project can humanly go. That it was more of a, this isn't done yet, but I know it's in the works. It can kind of go off the radar of things that need to be like, as a group that we need to be like, oh, we so-and-so repetitively is hearing there's no way to search employees. We know that, we're working on it. We'll get there at some point.
Heather Dean submitted another comment in the chat, so I'll read that out loud. She did mention a little bit ago that RMS does a meet and greet before school starts, again, speaking to another event that happens before the start of school.
So does
Uh,
JGS.
Yep.
Yeah, and then she also says, what about asking the schools? What would they like to see our committee do for our district? As a teacher at RMS, I don't mind talking about it to my RMS colleagues. I mean, surveys always have value as long as people participate. You have questions that are appropriate, a lot of
The other piece is if Heather goes and says, we have this communication committee and talks to them in person, what are things that our committee could help us to accomplish and has people be thinking about it? And then, get back to me, email me. I think there's even beyond, and then maybe after every building's been talked to a little bit, then potentially send out a survey. But I think first we need to look at our plan. Where are we in the plan? And what's next?
Well,
And
Heather,
some of it may be, what can we possibly take off Nick's to-do
Mhm.
list? So that it's not this impending list of,
Divide and conquer.
yes.
What else was Heather saying?
she had said, I mean, in a face-to-face conversation, she said at a staff meeting or a combined JGS RMS meeting,
Mhm.
so. Well, I think that was part of the intention behind structuring the committee the way that we did, was that we'd have representatives to engage different groups. So that an RMS staff member could go back to the school and be like, oh, hey, or they could come to the committee and say, hey, at RMS, we're really struggling with this thing. JGS, we're struggling with that thing. So it's that kind of two-way person to be able to either bring information to their group or to bring information back. So
Do we have anybody on the committee that would fall under the middle high school staff?
Megan, the librarian,
Prayer. Okay. Right.
the
She was
only
requesting.
person that we don't have, the only open position we have right now is, we don't have a JGS staff representative. We're just represented through parents. But I think we're pretty well split between like RMS, I mean, not RMS, Jaffrey and Ringe folks, having administrators, teachers, and school board and parents. So. But yeah, so I'll work on looking through the plan, trying to get like little bullet points ready for like, this is complete, this got pushed off, this whatever. Definitely agree with the points about divide and conquer, pull all that out, because then I don't feel as bad as in terms of like, oh, here are my things that I have to do for the year. Oh, this project got pushed off. Or this additional project came in and I didn't have time to do these things. We're able to better delegate and whatnot. So that would be really helpful. Just make sure we aren't losing track of items.
I definitely think going forward, when we do the plan, we should assign like, okay, so and so is going to work on this, so it doesn't all fall on you, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, because right now, even the projects that don't fall on me directly, I have to convince or work with those people to do the work.
Well,
Um,
it's hard to have ownership and be part of a committee when there's nothing to do. So let's do.
Yeah, and I think that our first couple meetings, the first two were very much, I presented for a really long time. We asked questions. There's certainly value to that. And if we ever reach points where it's like, hey, I really don't know about this, or I'd love to know more about that, I'd be happy to create a presentation. But I think that moving forward, if we could have more of these meetings that are discussions, creation, getting stuff done, raising questions, that would be incredibly value, and it would bring a lot more focus to this committee and potentially would offer more opportunities for us to not be speaking to an empty room, people coming in talking, so on and so forth. With regards to the next meeting, technically we're meeting a little bit later than we normally would, because we tried to align with the quarters, because we decided we didn't want to meet over the summer. We are technically in quarter 4 right now.
Mhm.
So we'll have to meet a little bit quicker, which may be good given what we're saying about the conversation. I'd really love to try to meet before we get really into like graduation season, because I'm going to be really busy with helping with events and whatnot. So I'd love to almost meet like end of May.
That gives us 3 weeks.
Yeah. It seems like, and we don't need a formal answer tonight because not everybody's here anyway, but it seems, I'm trying to remember when the last meeting was. I think Mondays and Thursdays have traditionally been when we've met. I know that a lot of school board committees meet on Thursdays, so that could be pretty busy. Happy to meet on a Monday. I'm usually here a lot of Mondays anyway. We would just have to make it not be a school board night.
So there's a school board meeting on the 15th. Is there one on the 29th as well?
No, that we're only first and third, so we
Okay.
could do
22nd or the 20th?
yeah,
The 29th is Memorial Day.
yeah, so
let's-
not the 29th.
Let's not do that.
So I could send out a survey to everybody just to say, hey, could we meet on the 22nd? I don't think that 2 weeks is unreasonable for me to turn around, going through the communication plan and just running through stuff. We could have I could send it out ahead of time, but I could do a quick highlight of just here are the things that we worked on, here are the things that kind of got lost in the tracks or
Just the-
not.
A progress we know.
And then really spend more time next meeting talking about what we want to do.
Yep.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
Maybe we could meet again over the summer, maybe it wouldn't be the whole committee, maybe some people would be Zoom, some people wouldn't. But maybe we meet over the summer to try to make sure that we're good to go to really like hit the ground running next year.
And there may be things over the summer that this committee would be really pivotal for.
Mhm.
Like making sure people know the open house is coming, that we talk to the admin about, how can we help you get volunteers in? If that's the do that we want to do next, that's
Well,
within the first
and that could
month
be
of school.
something as simple as one of us manning the table for the volunteers signups so that the building staff can do their thing at open house.
What I have realized is that having continuity across the district, so if Range decides to do that, then how do we communicate so that all three buildings
Yep.
are doing the same kind of thing? And that might, it's just making sure that all of the administrators are, here's something that we feel might be a valuable tool.
Yep.
So there's just lots of different things next. So we may want to meet over the summer so that we can be supportive of rolling out the fall.
Well, and if we want to talk about some of those things, even in the next meeting, I was speaking with a principal today about certain communication things. And they brought up some things that they wanted to do or see. And that was a point that I brought up as well, was just wanting to make sure that we're representing all the schools equally, making sure that whatever we're doing somewhere, we're doing everywhere else. Maybe it's tailored a little bit to that community. But making sure that everything's very similar. So somebody doesn't feel like, oh, well, we're getting all this elementary school news. We're not getting the middle high. The middle high school must really be trying to hide something. So I brought up the idea of having a meeting, me with the administrators, to discuss some of these things to make sure that if items come up, we can be on the same page. So maybe a couple other representatives of the committee at that point could come along with me. Just make sure they're hearing everything and having it not just be through my lens. Maybe
And we'll have some new district administrators.
Mm.
So. Well,
So-
Jeffrey has a new principal and there will be a new inclusion administrator at the elementary schools and a new assistant principal at the high school.
and new facilities director as
And a
well.
facilities
So
director.
we do have a lot of new administrative positions, and it could be a good time anyway, just to engage, get some new ideas.
Facilities, that's something we could be communicating about, things that are going well and things. There's new doors and there's still doors that are rusting. So. And does that come through us? Anyway. We have a plan for the next meeting. Let's go to there.
I know I was excited when I had to go to JGS last week to pick my daughter up early for a dentist appointment. And I walked up and I was like, the doors. Like being on the school board, I knew the doors were happening over break and that we had new doors and I knew all of that, but I hadn't seen them. And so walking up and seeing these big shiny doors, I was like, oh, there's new doors.
I was just excited that you can push a button and have access, that there's ADA compliance at the door. I've been to Range 6 times, but I was going through the office. I've not gone through the main doors to see how those are, but I'll try to put that in my head. I'm just glad there's ADA compliance.
Well, what I'll do next for us is, Heather usually will give me the meeting minutes. think within a day of the meeting. She says I have plenty of notes and she said the doors are really nice. So I usually send those out. I'll I'll make the video, put it up on YouTube. So I'll send out sometime this week, sooner than later, an email that contains a doodle link, just so that we can confirm that that Monday date works for everybody. The two plans, the minutes from this last meeting, the video, if anybody wants to watch it that wasn't here. And then I'll try to get that other piece done of me with the progress report. So then we have it all in one place. We can make sure that we're progressing forward.
Sounds good.
Any other questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns? Seeing head shakes. Anything from the online audience?
I'm good. It sounds like a plan. We want to make a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Do we need official motions and committees?
It's not the worst thing. We can have a separate offline conversation about the board committee stuff and the things that I'm trying to get the board committees to do more consistently.
Well, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Awesome.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.